devotion. They walk the path of love, and growing love to such a degree, they were able, as we will see, to snap out of the limitations both of their ego and of their mind, and literally from the limitations of our known reality, and enter the mystical domain, and from that the supreme, godly, spiritual domain. The connection between Christian mystics and Tantra. As we will see in the depth of the Christian message and of the Tantric message, there is a whole lot of similarity, and more than that, the tools of Tantra, and this is what we will aim to do now, they can explain the procedure which passes or which happens in the depth of Christianity, the procedure which happens to Christian mystics, not just to people that go to church and have a little bit of faith, but mostly in a worldly life, but for people who devote themselves to Christ. As we mentioned in a previous lectures, generally yogis and tantrics are in love with Christ. Yogananda says you should pray the following: God, Christ, Gurus. So above all the Gurus there is Christ. Vivekananda called him the greatest, called Christ the greatest man who ever walked on earth. And there is a very, very unique love between yogis and tantrics and Christianity, and I think it's unique. I never heard another tradition which says some other saint from another tradition is greater than anything ever produced by our tradition. We will aim to understand Christianity through Tantra, and a little bit Tantra through Christianity, and in this way get a view, a universal view of the mystical experience. So this is the aim of this lecture, is to understand the universality of the mystical experience, a universality which goes beyond culture. And once you figure out the universal, you can understand devotees and mystics basically from all traditions, because the process might be colored differently, might be timed differently, might be described differently, but essentially it's following basically the same steps. We will take the lives of 4 saints: Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Teresa of Avila, and Padre Pio, the 20th century saint, and 3 Christian saints and 1 great universal saint. Starting from the Hindu tradition, he became basically the saint of all traditions, the great Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, saint of the 19th century. All these 4 saints followed the path of devotion. Yeah, so mystics in different traditions, they often followed different. You can walk or rise the spiritual mountain from the, let's say, the path of concentration. If you perfect concentration and then focus on a supreme spiritual ideal long enough, intense enough, eventually you will attain liberation that way. There are many, for example, Buddhist sects, Buddhist schools, which are very much focused on that. Concentration, awakening of consciousness, detachment, until the ego dissolves through insight, through understanding. That's very specific for certain Buddhist tradition. And then there is another branch of self-giving, like Gandhi and Mother Teresa and other saints, which give themselves, and through self-giving attain very high spiritual states. And there is this path of devotion, which the 4 saints that we'll speak about in this lecture, which will probably turn into a sequence, into a series of lecture, these 4 saints walk the path of devotion. They walk the path of love. and growing love to such a degree, they were able, as we will see, to snap out of the limitations both of their ego and of their mind, and literally from the limitations of our known reality, and enter the mystical domain, and from that the supreme, godly, spiritual domain. Now the game, or the path of devotion, might look from a distance not so structured. If you look at the Eightfold Path of Buddha, is extremely structured. It's and from desire, attachment, from attachment, suffering. There is a very, very clear, and then you unwind it, and you take, and with the Dharma, and you release this, and you release that, and the whole thing is like Maha surgery. The great surgery of your inner world, step by step by step by this. This is why the Buddhist message is so appealing, because it's so incredibly clear on the mental level. And then if you follow it and you understand, and if you really, really look, you see there is no I. So who should have desire? So who should be attached? So who should worry? So who is bound? So who should be free? And there you are. You are free. Wonderful. It's very, let's say, the stages are very well described and are very obvious. They stand out when it comes to this path of the mind, Jnana Yoga, or the Buddhist path, or Raja Yoga. Steps in concentration are also described in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika very, very clearly. You attain that level and that level and that level. Whereas this path of devotion seems a little bit more wild, a little bit less structured, but actually it is. It is, and it does have very, very clear stages, but these stages are, let's say, more intuitive, more inward, and a little bit harder to detect. The essential mechanism on the path of devotion is a mechanism of attraction. We have two magnets, one magnet going up, our spiritual aspiration, our love for our spiritual ideal, our love for God. Yeah, if that is our spiritual ideal, this is one magnet that's pulling us up. And the other magnet that's pulling us into having a comfortable bed, having a life, a love life, a social media life, food, power, control, basketball, whatever it is that is attracting us into things of the world. Yeah, so this game of attraction is the essence of Bhakti Yoga, or of the path of devotion. So if we, let's say 20% of our being, 20% of our thought, which is a lot, is directed towards loving our divine ideal, 20% of our thoughts, our dreams, our impulses, our time in the day and so forth is going there, 20%, and 80% is going towards making money, making friends, whatever is there. Then we will be this high, yeah, 20% pulling us up and 80% pulling us down. It will lead us to a certain point of balance over there. What you do in Bhakti Yoga, or in the path of devotion, and what these four saints have done, they increase the upper one, mostly. Yeah? You increase your love for your spiritual ideal. You increase your attraction, your longing. You become heartbroken, mad with love, like in the Song of Songs. Where is my beloved? I am mad. I am sick from love. I cannot find him. Yeah? You increase the madness. You increase the longing, 20%, 30%, 50%, and as you increase the longing, your attachment to worldly things disappears. You stop caring. Once that longing rose above a certain level, so Saint Francis of Assisi was a child of a very rich family. They were making fabrics, and he wanted to be a knight and respected and honorable and a warrior and a rich man and status. And in time, after spending some time in prison and so forth, he started to have devotion, and that devotion, and he would go to the lepers, and that would open his heart, and he would take care of them, and he would pray, and he would ask for a vision, and gradually, his attraction to divine things became so big, his longing became so big, something snapped. And then he said, well, rubbish this world. I don't need money. He took the fabrics of his father and gave them to the poor and started giving his things. There was a whole famous scene there. His father comes and said, this is a madman. This is not my son. He's not my inherit. I disown him. Francis, like a good spiritual person, said, yes, Daddy, you're right. These are the clothes you gave me. And in the middle of the city, took off all his clothes, stayed naked, gave his clothes to the father. He says, now I am free, so forth. Lived basically as a beggar, as an enlightened beggar for the rest of his life. But there was a certain click there. But the click did not come from down up. It was not, I hate the world, I hate the world, I hate the world. This is all. No, I love. And then that comes to a certain critical point where this love lifts you to a kind of high view in which you realize what is meaningless and what has actual meaning. Yeah, whereas in other traditions it's a lot about you detach and you detach and you detach, and this is meaningless, and therefore that is meaningful. The path of devotion goes much more into that is meaningful, and then you see, you go so high, it's from here it's obvious what has very little meaning rich. The path of devotion basically focuses on making this attraction force upwards stronger. And that's a whole mechanism. So each one of us, hopefully, has at least a tiny degree, or maybe a huge degree, but a certain degree of devotion. For some people today, it's almost 1% of their being is devotion, and 99% of their being is attachment. So there is a way to increase that particular degree of devotion. So if your devotion is 5% or 10% of your being is devoted to a supreme ideal, and 90% is selfish, comfortable, worldly, and interested only in things of the world and what they can give me, there is a way to make that 5 or 10% bigger. And this is somehow implicit in all the Christian scriptures and in all the biographies of the saints. This is really what it is about. Make the functioning one, the functioning side of Christianity, is how to make that love bigger. And that mechanism is described very precisely in Tantra, in the teachings of Shiva Pashupati. Will not enter it in detail, but those of you who want to study this mechanism, is described very wonderfully in the teachings related to Shiva Pashupati, and it is implicit in the teachings of Christianity. The mechanism is, or one of the mechanisms that we will describe now, is pretty simple. You love your spiritual ideal, you love God, you love Christ. In the case of Christianity, you love the Holy Spirit. And in your prayers, you pray for two things. You pray for more love, and you pray for less attachment to yourself. You pray for less attachment to the world. You pray to be humble. Humble in needs, humble in wishes. And that prayer, if it is sincere and has enough momentum, will inevitably, and this is very important, inevitably attract grace. So a prayer which is heartless, a prayer which is lips, a prayer which is robotic, will not attract anything meaningful. But any prayer which is real, any prayer which comes from the heart, will attract grace. And then the grace will go in accordance to where the prayer was addressed. Yeah, it is said in the Tantric tradition, God is the Kalpataru tree. God is the wish-fulfilling tree. Yeah, you know this story that you sleep under the tree with a wish and you wake up and your wish is fulfilled. This is the wish-fulfilling tree. And indeed, if you pray in such a way, whatever wish you have, that wish will be fulfilled with two conditions. Yeah, this is what the Tantric tradition tells us, and it says it very clear. The great saint Ramakrishna that we mentioned in the beginning, he says it very clear. Two conditions. One, that you are close to the tree, so your prayers, they need to sanctify you. When you pray, you need to be similar to that you pray to. You need to be full of love, compassion, selfless, with intensity, with love, with sincerity. That makes you close to the wish-fulfilling tree. And the second thing is that the tree will always fulfill your real intention. Yeah? If you want to be rich and you pray for humility, the grace will bring you richness, not humility. Yeah, there is this famous story, the man sat under the tree to make his sick brother healed. He came back, his brother was dead, and there was a lot of money in his room, because inside he didn't care so much about his brother, but he wanted to get rich.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.
Thank you.